This video is brought to you by SVS.
SVS.
Yeah,
Much better ring to it. Yeah.
Yeah, much better than Hegel reads.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So today we are going to be. First of all, welcome back to the 1-Bit podcast. Remember to check out our 1-Bit merch in the description below. And today, by the way, really high quality merch. Wear it daily. So today we're going to be talking about and discussing some of the music albums and tracks that we use to test our gear and audiophile equipment. All right, and these are going to be also tracks that we enjoy and love. So I'll go first. My first one is Kissin' Blue, and this one is by Yellow. And what I love about this track is that it has that kind of rhythm. It goes like do doom, right?
Yeah.
And it
I
has.
have no idea what that means.
Yeah,
guys, your system should sound like that.
Do-dum.
If it doesn't, something's
play
wrong.
the track and you will understand. Okay. It has good rhythm and pacing. And so when I talk about fast bass, tight bass, detailed bass, any sort of kind of mid bass qualities that I talk about, this is the track that I play quite a bit. It has good heft and weight to it, and it should have good weight and heft to it. When you listen to a system that doesn't have the weight and heft to it, it tends to be on the leaner side. So it's a good test track to test if it's overall a warmer track or overall more clinical track, right? The overall track has a little bit of tilt towards the hotness, right? So it's mostly neutral, but it does have that sibilance just a little bit in a perfectly neutral system as well. So what you should expect is that when you have a warm system, this track should come through with no fatigue whatsoever. And on brighter systems, for example, with vocal and magical systems, speakers, I usually can't listen to the entirety of the track because I'll get fatigued. So that's kind of like my person. And again, I don't have a gripe with vocal and magical. Don't give me that, okay?
Man, they did nothing to you. Like, what happened?
It's just a preference thing, okay?
Bullets here.
They can sound good. It's just not my type of sound as of now. But so I usually like this track on a more neutral or warmer tracks. It is very impressive, don't get me wrong, when you listen to it in a detailed system, but it can be fatiguing because of the sibilance and so on. So it's not just about the bass on this track. While that is the primary focus, there are going to be great details and great separation and soundstage kind of information that you can get out of this track because it is a pretty spacious sounding track as well in a good system. So it's a very good track to test multiple things. The only things it doesn't cover would be like strings, tonality, and vocals, because it doesn't have those things, right? But for the most things, for the most part, it's a very good track to test out, and especially that bass. I mean, it has great bass authority that you can really rely on.
Okay, excellent. Well, I think this is my cue for the ad read by SVS. Okay, so this is, I think, one of my first times trying this. I suck at this, so here is my ad read for SVS. SVS, if you like bass from products that look either as small as a toaster or as big as a cat scratching post, they have you, SVS. If you want a subwoofer that delivers so much bass it can give your neighbors a colonoscopy, SVS, they got you covered. Yeah, that's all I have. How does it feel to lose a sponsor, Jay? This is why you should do the reads.
How to not start an ad read. I'm not good at this.
This is what happens when you give the guy in ball cap a chance to do this.
Anyways, thanks SVS for sponsoring the video. Please don't help us. Next. All right, next track.
All right, so my pick is going to be less of a track and more of an album, because that's usually how I like to listen to music, is through albums. Now, my first pick is Radiohead in Rainbows. So Radiohead is, I would classify them as experimental rock. Now, this track was released in 2007, and it was a pretty big departure from their normal portfolio. And I absolutely love this music. It's something I listen to even when I'm not evaluating gear. But it's become one of my go-to tracks to quickly evaluate what a component can and cannot do. Now, on the right system, this album will put me in a very relaxed state, especially from track 3 onwards. I mean, I could just go to sleep basically. Now, when it comes to the sound of this album, so what you're getting is an album that has this warm and lively sound to it. So what you should check for is that the high frequencies are going to be pronounced, but they should never be bright or sibilant. If they're overly tilted up or sibilant, there's something going on in your room or with your system. The bass is going to be a little bit boosted, but should never be outright dominant. It should never dominate the sound, nor should it sound boomy at all. Again, if you hear that, then there's going to be an imbalance somewhere in your system. And the better systems I found will do a great job of revealing instrument separation on this recording. Now, I'll get to that in just a moment. But when it comes to specific tracks that I listen for in this album, the first one is going to be Nude, which is track number 3. And it's a really good track to check for phase just because at the beginning of it, a guitar will play and it comes from the left channel. So if it's not coming from the left channel, then you've got your system wired out of phase. Otherwise, another track is something called All I Need. This is a great way to test instrument separation, specifically towards the very end of the track. Things get really busy. There's a lot going on. And on lower end systems, it just sounds kind of like a mush, like just a sonic blend of everything. And it's not very distinct. But as you upgrade and go to higher end components, that begins to become clear, and you'll reach a point where it becomes so clear you can even imagine it sounding mushy to begin with, right? So that's a pretty good way to test the difference between affordable electronics and very expensive electronics. Now, the downside to this album, you do not buy it to test dynamic range. It's kind of a hotly recorded album in that regard. The CD itself comes with those stupid paper sleeves. In fact, I have it sitting next to me. Stupid sleeves that scratch the disc. And then the album, in my opinion, only starts on track 3 and onwards. So if you're kind of new to Radiohead, the first 2 tracks may be offensive to your ears. But everything from track 3 onwards should be good.
Cool.
That's my pick. Your turn.
Nice. Nice. I like your choice there. My next one is going to be Bass and Drum Intro by Nils Lofgren Band.
Okay.
Now, this is one of my favorite tracks, like to this day, and I must have played it thousands of times by now. Like, this is my go-to track since like the beginning of my journey.
Yeah.
As soon as I found this track, I was like, yes.
So
yes.
Your girlfriend and dogs and all that must love that track.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's amazing. But this is one of those tracks where I've had so many experiences where in a good system I'll be playing, and my neighbors and even when I used to work at the studio, the store. Other people in a different room would think like it's an actual instrument playing.
Yeah.
Right? So it has really good tone. It has good guitar. It has good separation and imaging capabilities where like, the drum it's not stationary. It moves around. So it goes, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it goes exactly like that. I think I did a pretty good job. I think I need
I'll just
click that like button for that clapping. Anyways, sorry, I apologize. But yeah, it has great imaging capabilities. It's just a fun track to listen to. Again, no vocals, but it has like these noise from the guitar amp that goes like, it kind of explodes. Not the guitar amp, but like the noise, right?
If the guitar amp's exploding, that is a problem.
That is a problem. But that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. So it sounds really good. It's a very, I would say, good track to test tone. So for people that like tone, right, and care about tone, like Sean and I, it is a great track to test out. I remember Stones Faber Electamotor 3 and the Hagel H190 pairing. It had that elastic feeling with this track and the guitars that made me so mesmerized. And I remember talking about that in that video where I was like talking about like the combination there with the Stones Faber. It's one of those things I look for. It has very good, it gives a very good indication of tone and soundstage, width and depth, and the instrumental separation, imaging. It can tell you a lot of things, just like the previous track that I talked to you guys about, but it doesn't have vocals. So that's one thing that it doesn't test. But with string instruments, I mean, this is a go-to track. Like, I value string instruments. That's one of my things, right? As you guys know. So for me, this is one of those tracks that really will make or break my experience with a product.
Okay.
on a personal level, like
Yeah.
taste wise.
Yeah, and that's a track I'm not familiar with, so that's something I have to check out. I'm familiar with like some of the other stuff they do, but not
Yeah,
that.
and this track can sound very lean at times, right?
Okay.
In different systems, and I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's too lean or full and luscious sounding or too hazy sounding, it gives you a very good indication of where your system stands.
So basically, once again, Focal and Magico, right?
I can't listen to that to this track with Focal and Magical.
I knew it. I knew it. Oh man.
Well, maybe with certain pairings. I did hear CH Precision Gear with Magico where I thought it was amazing.
Really?
But listen, it's all about the pairing. I'm talking about my experience thus far. Okay, I have nothing against Focal Magico. I love them as a brand. I think it's wonderful what they're doing. But I'm just saying, for my taste, okay, as of so much right now,
Big
right?
fan.
God, gotta call me out on my preferences, man.
All right, so no, I mean I think it's a good recommendation. I actually am gonna check that out soon. So my next album, okay, cliched audiophile stuff, but you know what? I don't care. I like it. I think it's well recorded, and I like the music. And that is Patricia Barber's Cafe Blue Unmastered Edition. So this is a jazz album. I think most seasoned audiophiles are more than familiar with it. It was released in 1994, but I think it was around 2016 or so. Give me a little bit of rope here. Is when they released the Unmastered Edition. Now, this is a super audio hybrid CD, which means it'll work on a regular CD player, but will sound its best, or supposed to sound its best on a super audio player. Now, the whole premise behind the Unmastered Edition is the original copy was highly processed sounding, so the Unmastered is meant to remove a lot of that processing and to give you more of that live on tape sound, something that sounds like it was from the original master. And by and large, I think they did a great job. I use this album not just to relax, but I think from a sound quality perspective, I think it does a pretty good job of capturing how sound from live instruments and vocals project into a space. And I think the tone of the instruments themselves are pretty decent. And there's also going to be some other audiophile elements that I listen for, which I'll get to in just a moment. But the sound of the album. So the highs are going to still be a little bit spicy, as with the original release, although it's not quite as forward and as thin sounding as the original. So the highs should be a little bit spicy, but never bright or sibilant. The bass should be really clean, and instrument separation should be very good, regardless of the system that you're running. Now, when it comes to specific tracks, A Taste of Honey is really good for airiness and spaciousness of the soundstage, really good instrument separation, and the tone should be great for both the vocals as well as the instruments. And when it comes to testing a speaker's dynamic capability, there's a track called Nardis that can really put amplifiers on speakers through their paces, especially at louder volumes. And this happens more towards the end of the track where things start going a little bit crazy, but I found that to be very useful to tell what the limits of a speaker or an amplifier may be, especially in terms of dynamic output. Now, the downsides, it's just a cliche, album, right? Not everyone's going to like it, but I think it's a safe recommendation. I think this is the kind of music that most audiophiles can get behind, at least when it comes to testing out the sound of their system. So that is my second album recommendation.
Cool.
Your turn.
Yeah, I don't play Patricia Barber that much, but
whatever. You pretend like you're not some like mega audiophile over there.
Yeah, I think my next track is something that I think not a lot of people might know, and this is My Favorite Things by Young Sana. It's a Korean singer. She has a beautiful voice, one of the best voices that I come to love, and it's mostly vocal. I mean, she's singing about her favorite things. I mean, there's like a triangle or something going on the right side, ding, ding, which gives you that kind of sweet presentation as well through her voice. And a lot of people will be confused as you see Sean's face right now. He's getting triggered because he knows what I'm about to say. That sweet
what does
sound
sweet mean?
Sweet sound. Now, sweet sound is something that I struggle to explain many times, but I think a lot of people,
which is why you shouldn't say it.
No, people get it. People get it. If you listen to EL34 or 300 B tubes, right? That sweetness in the high frequency, that almost sparkly, it's not bright, but it's like sparkly, starry night kind of feeling, no, Didn't get that experience. Okay, well, it sounds spacious and sparkly, and that comes across sweet to me. Okay, especially those triangles. Ding, ding. Well, if it sounds like this, I wouldn't listen to it. But imagine my voice replaced it with the actual track. And my favorite things has this vocal that's wonderful that can sound too thin at times because her voice is high pitched, right?
It is.
So it can sound thin in a system that is not, even neutral system can sound thin. In a system that has a little bit more muscular, nature to it, my God, the amount of vocalization, the breath, and the sweetness of the vocals, and most importantly, in a really good system, for somehow it's just vocals, right? But you can tell the stage that she's in, and that stage becomes very obvious. And despite the fact that there's it's pitch black in the background, as it should, it was recorded with very good gear, good microphones, good mixers, and good mastering practices by experts. And so it's a very good track. It's also a good track to test the capabilities of your system, because when you listen to this track on a lower end versus a much well catered higher end system, man, the difference is just massive. These are one of the tracks where I played back in Korea when I was invited to the acoustic room, right? And they played a small Mon Minis, with the small speakers, and they sounded great. And I was like, wow, that sounds really good for like $2,000. And then they put on their flagship, and it was like immediately without even the sub. And the flagship, by the way, is not as big as people think. So it's not a massive difference. It's not just the bass that I heard. The soundstage, the scape, the sweetness, the blackness, the depth in the vocals. Like, this is a track that tells it all. Like, it tells me so much about the vocal capability, about how good the system is in detail retrieval, as well as being able to balance those tonalities. Now this track is something also that I play all the time, like the rest of the tracks, but I enjoy to this day, because every single time in a different system, it gives me something that to look forward to. Right?
Yeah. And the funny thing is, and it's crazy that I'm actually familiar with this artist. I have two of her albums at home, and she does a lot of covers, but yeah, she has an absolutely great voice. And I think your description to the sound of many of her albums is actually on point. Like, it is a higher pitched voice. It is going to be a little bit thin. So once again, Magico, Focal, you may not apply here.
I'm so sorry, but I just remember, I didn't bring it up three times. I brought it one. He did. Okay.
We co-sign on that officially. So
I do.
Take note of that, Focal, and
I can't lie, but Young Sona. I mean, I really love her tracks, man. Like, Jesus Christ, this is a track that is emotionally engaging, and that's rare for a lot of these tracks. Like, even Kiss and Blue and Bass and Drum Intro. It's a track that I play all the time, so it's hard to get emotionally engaged with it. My favorite things by Young Sana, man, the way she, take her pauses and breath down to the technicalities, and then also I don't particularly like overly technical recordings, like where the vocals are overly technical. I feel like that takes away the emotion a little bit, but she just is a masterpiece in technicality, but she does not forget to take those breaths and those nuances to bring out those emotions and make it authentic. I just absolutely love what she does. So it is one of my favorite tracks, even amongst the top 3 that I named here.
Yeah. And let me remind you of whenever I see you, sometimes whenever tracks with a Korean folk song just plays in the back of my head.
Yeah, she does have other like tracks that, and the funny thing is, I picked this track and Sean, we did share the tracks ahead of time so that we don't overlap. And so I sent this over to him, and then his immediate response was like, this is playing in my head when I look at your face. And then he sends me a track by her, and it's like a track that I never knew she sang. And some other Korean folks will know this.
Korean.
So I'm gonna say this for the Koreans out there that's gonna crack up when I say this. Okay, he sent me Arirang. Yeah, that's like Joseon Shide, that's like Joseon Dynasty, that's like not even Korea, that's like old, well, it is Korea, but like old, dynasty, right?
Yeah.
Music. It's like, I'm not gonna attempt it for the sake of my ancestors.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Name yourself and your cow and all that. But anyways. All right. So 3rd pick here.
Yep.
So this is very much not audiophile music. In fact, 90% of the people watching or listening right now, you're not going to like this album. But there's going to be some of you out there who will like it. And that is Kill Switch Engage as Daylight
Mm.
Dies. So this is a metal album. And when I say metal, we're not talking about just clean vocals. We're talking about people who sometimes go raw, which sometimes I admit sounds like a kid who's just throwing a tantrum, like, I
Sounds like
want my
me.
candy now, like that kind of thing.
That was good. That was good.
So this album was released in 2006. And to me, I love this album just to listen to for fun. But it is one of those rare examples of a well-recorded metal album. Of course, it's not going to be to everybody's taste, but the sound is pretty well done. For example, it's not inherently sibilant. Yes, there's some extra treble energy, but it should never sound outright bright. Even on fairly hot sounding speakers, it shouldn't be like, again, too sharp sounding to your ears. The bass is going to be strong, but it shouldn't dominate the sound. And I think it's a really good test of your system when it comes to handling mid bass and upper bass, because there's a lot of kick drums here. The music gets pretty complex, and a really good system can distinguish those notes really well. Whereas a system that may be just a little too saturated in that frequency range is going to sound a little thicker and a little muddier, even though that's not inherent to the recording. But it still shows you what's going on, right, with your system. Now, I do have a few tracks worth mentioning for the very few people out there who are familiar with this music or want to try it. So there's one track called Arms of Sorrow that can be very punchy in the right system. So if you have, like, say, a big set of speakers that are moving a lot of air, it could literally like almost hit you in the chest, which is really kind of cool. The bass is going to be very strong, yet incredibly clean. And again, it should never sound boomy. Another track is going to be My Curse, which is very spacious sounding. It's spicy, but it's not bright. Again, this is a good way to test the inherent sibilance of a certain, hi-fi component. I'm listening for whether or not it's energetic, but not too overwhelming. And on certain systems, it can be. But again, that's more related to the system than the recording itself. So what are the downsides? It's not to everybody's taste. And plus, with this, they released a remastered version a few years ago. That remastered version sounds like poop. It's just like pretty much every remastered version of any recording. Like somebody just said, I want more treble, I want more this, and it just kind of ruined what they came up with originally. So if you buy this album, buy the original copy. It's still available.
What's with remasters, by the way?
Dude, I don't know. It's like somebody said, I'm getting paid money and I need to do something to show, some results from my paycheck that I'm getting. So let me just go to the console and just like turn a bunch of knobs, high frequency boost here, mid range boost here. Like, I don't know. Let's screw up the polarity a little bit, make it more spacious.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect to the mastering engineers, but like, Jesus Christ, these remasters. Like, I was hearing the remaster of Hey Jude by Beatles the other day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like deadlocked in center. You get phantom imaging. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
There's no soundstage. What did they do? They just panned everything to like almost mono, and it's not even mono. So I'm like, what's going on here? I even made a post on my Patreon Discord going like, guys, am I the only one that feels this way about this remaster? And then I was hearing the other remaster. I think it was my brother. I forgot the track name, but I was listening to the remaster of that. Mm-hmm. And it's a stark contrast to the original recording. Like, I mean, I feel like they just like panned instruments like in random places. Like, I don't know exactly what they're doing with these remasters, but they're far from my taste. I'll say.
Yeah,
I like the original recordings better.
Yeah, for sure. I am almost 100% in that camp as well. I mean, the only stuff I like that are redone tends to be, I hate to say it, like more audiophile stuff. When they try to preserve the original master, even with all the flaws, they don't try to take that out. Like, I think, what is it? Analog Productions? Is that their name? They do a really good job of that with SACD and vinyl. But yeah, that's definitely my thing. Otherwise, I think that's about it for today's video.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. So let us know in the comment section your top 3 tracks to test out. Don't cheat. It has to be 3 tracks or 3 albums. And feel free to also describe what you're listening for in those tracks, why you like them, and then even maybe give us a little hint on what your system is. in the comment section. So yeah, give us some suggestions, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video and took something away from it, at least a few tracks to test out in your system tonight, hopefully. So yeah, that's pretty much it from us. Thank you for watching. This was the 1-Bit Podcast. Until next time.
Peace.
We're driving cars on a Mars tonight.